Right, we've got a quorum already, so I think we can start. I understand that there are several meetings going on at the same time, so thank you for coming to this meeting. Agenda item number 1, confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the meetings held on the 7th of October and the 27th of October have already been issued to members, and we haven't received any proposals for amendments. So can members please confirm the minutes? Thank you. Item 2, meeting with the administration. So let's invite the administration in.
I
believe you know the government officials very well, so I will not introduce them to members. We've got a written response from the administration to points made by members at the meeting on the 27th of October. This is paper 217/02. So please take us through the paper, and then we can I think members can ask questions. Yes, Chairman. So we've issued paper 02 in relation to points made by members at the meeting on the 27th of October. Now, we have no intention to carry out a survey on the fees, but our understanding is that there are no differences with regard to fees charged for documents provided through electronic means and fees charged for documents issued through or in paper form. But of course, approval is required from the MPFA, and the MPFA has the responsibility to make sure that the trustees charge reasonable levels of fees. And then concerning the statutory declaration for claims for payment of accrued benefits on grounds of early retirement. So there are some amendments concerning the wording. There is some flexibility here. So there is flexibility for those who choose early retirement and then wish to join the labor market later. And then concerning whether the Commissioner for Labour has made any request for information disclosure to MPFA, the answer is yes. And in those cases, requests were made under the Occupational Safety and Health Ordinance and the Protection of Wages on Insolvency Ordinance for verification for extra payment under the Protection of Wages on Insolvency Fund or for the purpose of bringing criminal proceedings by LD. And then the factors that the authority takes into account deciding whether to give written consent in respect of a new section in the bill. So we have clarified the 3 conditions. The information is to be disclosed to a person located in a place outside Hong Kong. The person exercises or performs in that place functions that correspond to those of the Commissioner of Inland Revenue. And the MPFA satisfied that the disclosure will enable or assist the person to assist or perform the person's official functions. So I think the answer is self-explanatory. And I welcome members' questions. Thank you. Members, do you have any questions in relation to the administration's responses? No? No questions? Then I think we can move on to the next paper. The administration has provided us with responses in relation to comments made by the public and certain organizations. So I think you should take us through this paper 03, point by point. And if members have got any questions, you can raise your hands at any time. Yes, Chairman, thank you. This is a rather long paper. And many of the comments have already been dealt with already. Do I need really to go through the paper point by point? Yes, please do so. All right, so Chairman, I'll start with page 1. First of all, withdrawal of accrued benefits by scheme members. At the moment, the withdrawal is on a one-off basis, and now we are proposing 12 free withdrawals. And some are of the view that there shouldn't be a cap. And there are others who are of the view that administrative costs are incurred when scheme members withdraw their accrued benefits. Now, I want to clarify that, in fact, initially we proposed 4 times. But then at the FA panel, some members proposed that there should be 12 times a year, free of charge. And so we have taken on board the panel's suggestion, and we're now proposing 12 times a year free of charge. All right, members, do you have any questions? Because I think this is a rather important point, the withdrawal arrangements. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, please. Yes, Chairman, 12 times a year. Now, is it that scheme members need to apply on every occasion, or is it that the scheme member can, on a fixed date each month, withdraw their accrued benefits, like the arrangements for paying salaries to employees? Now, Chairman, an application has to be made to the trustee for withdrawal of accrued benefits, Chairman. But then the scheme member can give a standing instruction, say, for example, within a year, a certain amount has to be paid regularly to the scheme member. All right. Now, at the moment, scheme members withdraw their benefits on a one-off basis upon retirement, and payments are made by checks. But under the new or the proposed arrangement, assuming that a scheme member withdraws $5,000 a month, the number of payments will be increased from 1 to 40. So how are you going to deal with this issue? I understand that the administration wants to see administrative costs reduced, but I think this arrangement is contrary to this policy objective of keeping administrative fees low. Now, because the costs are high, and in theory, a scheme member can withdraw, say, $1 each time. So anyway, I understand that the HKAB has proposed 4 times, and then some organizations have proposed that the minimum amount be set at $5,000. So I don't think people should make use of this new arrangement as if it were an ATM. So I want to know what you propose to do. Mr. Zhang, thank you. In 2011-2012, there was a public consultation exercise. The public want to see more flexibility with regard to the withdrawal arrangements. So we need to strike a balance that and of course, we hope that the trustee, or we understand that the trustee or trustees want to minimize the administrative costs, but at the same time, we need to give flexibility to scheme members who wish to withdraw their accrued benefits. So we understand that the industry has proposed some views, but then the Consumer Council has said that there shouldn't be a cap concerning the number of withdrawals. So the administration is, in a way, caught in the middle. We are proposing 12 times a year free of charge. We hope that we have already struck the right balance. Concerning the minimum amount of withdrawal, we are open-minded. If members want us to make an amendment, we can consider that. So we've increased the number of times from 4 to 12, and we've taken on board the FA panel suggestion in proposing this amendment. Ms. Dari Lee, please. Yes, Chairman, thank you. I wish to also say something about the concerns of the industry. In fact, in the FA panel, I said that ordinary members of the public wanted to be able to withdraw their accrued benefits more times a year, and that desire, I think, is understandable. But Chairman, I do agree that if there is no cap, that may increase the cost to the trustees, and some consumers may feel that they can use the arrangement as if it were an ATM, and as a result, administrative costs will go up.
I think, as the government mentioned, we can set a minimum amount for withdrawal. I think it's worthy for us to consider that, because we don't want members of the public to treat this as an ATM. So if you set a minimum amount of withdrawal, that may be a middle-of-the-road approach in terms of the consumption pattern. Mr. Lee Chak-yan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here it said that there are 12 free withdrawals, apparently. But how do you know that they're to be free? The administrative fees may be another calculation, or it may be included. So if the 12 free withdrawals are to be included in the administrative fees or be absorbed by other parties, as there's no monitoring on the administrative fees, then that's tantamount to no free withdrawals. Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lee Chak-yan's issue is actually mentioned on page 2 of the paper. That is, whether or not costs will be passed from one party to another. At the moment, the trustee has an offer instrument. That is for the admission of contract. And that offer instrument has to set out the fees and charges which have to be approved by the NPFA. And the NPFA will see to it that each fee and charge is reasonable. And there are principles for fee charging. So if there's this intention of transfer of costs, the NPFA can serve as a gatekeeper in the offer instrument. Ms. Dari Lee raised another suggestion. As for the minimum amount of withdrawal, we have to consider that if this is written into the law, it will be very rigid, and that may cause inconvenience to scheme members. There's another compromise. That is, in the offer instrument, the trustee and the scheme member can agree on something. Then we don't need to specify an amount in law. If we specify an amount in law, in future, if we find the amount too high or too low, we'll have to do legislative amendment, which may be time-consuming. So we can consider the other option. Well, I don't think you have answered Mr. Lee Chak-yan's question. You say that the fees can be set out, But then Mr. Lee is saying that if the fee is absorbed into the big pie, then you won't detect it. Well, on page 2 that's mentioned, if there's transfer of costs, the offer instrument has to set out all fees and charges, and that has to be approved by the NPFA. Well, the 12 withdrawals won't be set out. The administrative costs will rise. Of course, you can say that the administrative costs can remain the same, but overall speaking, the expenditure will become higher, so the incentive to pass the cost to other parties will be enhanced. Do you understand? Well, we don't know the impact yet. Just now it said that the NPFA will serve as a gatekeeper. I really doubt that. Can the NPFA explain to us how it will serve as a gatekeeper? Can the fee structure be down to the details such that it cannot be absorbed into the big pie? Maybe we can invite the NPFA to explain.
To address the question, one needs to appreciate there are two different issues here, fees and costs. It is absolutely true that any new service, there's a cost associated with it, and the issue is how this cost gets attributed on a disbursement basis. The proposal that's in the law is that it cannot be transferred as a direct fee to the member, so that, and the mechanism that would happen is that when a withdrawal is taken out, be it the $5,000 a month or something, that you're allowed to take a certain amount, $200 or a percentage. So the free withdrawal proposal relates to that mechanism. It says you cannot have that sort of mechanism for 12 withdrawals a month. It may be possible that trustees will allow more and they might charge a fee in relation to that. Mr. Lee's question goes to the more difficult issue, well, what happens to the cost? There is a cost in doing that. There's no doubt extra services involves different costs. That will have to be absorbed within the general administration fee that's taken by the trustee. There's no way of separating that, for instance. It is true, we will not be able to say this part of their cost relates to this because, to take an easy example, a member rings up the call centre to ask about doing this withdrawal. You can't segregate which part of that call relates to that and which doesn't. So, however, it's true to say that the only move in those general administration fees is down, not up. If anyone came to us seeking to increase that fee in relation to costs associated with this, we'd look at that very sceptically, of course. But it may well be true in the longer term, if one takes a system-wide look at this, that the costs of doing business do go up, extra services, but we're trying to strike a compromise on not increasing those costs so much that they have a detrimental impact on that long-term reduction in the fees that people are allowed to charge to cover the costs.
Well, I think Mr. Darren Bashane's English is very difficult to listen to because of the tone. But I think what he's saying is that if there are extra services, there may be extra costs. Well, I hope that the government can consider that. So even if you say that it's free, it's not really free, because you really have to make sure that the fees are reduced. So we really want to know how you're going to control that by means of an amount or the number of times. I'd also like to follow up on Mr. Lee Chao-yan's question. If the cost because of the member wants to cash in rises, then I have a worry. In the fund, for the bid and offer, will they be separated farther apart? If so, the cost will be built in. For the unit spread, for the differences between them, under the existing law, is there any stipulation that the difference shouldn't be more than a certain basic point? That is the unit spread. If you want to cater for the NPFA members to make 12 withdrawals every year, then if the unit spread is slightly widened, such that members won't detect it, well, this is to follow up on Mr. Lee Chao-yan's question. My second question is, if in a year you allow 12 withdrawals, then for each withdrawal, for how many working days he has to wait for? Do you have any performance pledge? Because every time after you've issued an instruction, theoretically you ask your fund manager to sell that member's units, right? Then you get the money, and when everything is cleared, you give the money to the member. DS, you want to answer that, or the MPFA? All right, Mr. Darren Machine.
On the spread first. Most MPF funds do not impose a spread. We have issued a guideline following section 34 in the regulation that does say they are allowed to charge a spread, and they should consider doing so, but only to cover the actual costs of any transaction costs. So it's not a profit item. Under both this amendment and the previous one to section 34, we make it clear that that spread can only be used to cover any actual costs, because practically sometimes in fund management circles that's done as a standard practice, so a thing called dilution doesn't occur. The people left in haven't got to bear the costs of the people getting out. However, practically no MPF fund charges that at the moment, because they still are able to, because there's so much money flows into MPF funds on a regular basis, they're capable of covering applications and redemptions out of the liquidity they keep, either the cash coming in or the cash being transferred. So at the moment, none of them have that. But we have a current guideline, and we'll update it pursuant if this amendment is made.
Yeah, but Mr. Machine, this is the point I'm looking into, because the cashing in is actually a cost, and your guideline actually allows the fund to charge the cost. That's what I'm actually pointing at, because in theory, they can. Of course, I mean, at the moment, none of the funds will be charging a spread. But if the cashing in mechanism becomes law, and they say, oh, our operating cost has slightly increased, so we just, build in a slight spread on the units. Don't you think this is a provision which they can rely on?
Short answer is no, because the law and the guideline make it clear that this spread cannot be used to cover the trustees' costs. What it can be used is the transaction costs. So if, for instance, to sell your units to cash that out, we have to pay brokerage to someone, that can be put in the spread, because others shouldn't have to bear that cost. So it's about spreading the cost between members fairly. But we do make it clear that the trustees' costs cannot be covered in that, only the transaction costs.
The second question, please.
The
second question.
How many days shall the money be paid?
Yeah.
With an unrestricted 12, it will just be they can, either through standing instructions, presumably people will use a standardised monthly cycle if they have 12. If they do not, and they put in 12 requests on a weekly basis early in the year, they'll run out of their free withdrawals very quickly. But one would expect, and we'll certainly look to form design to reinforce this, that one should look at this on a regular payment basis rather than a series of ad hoc payments.
好，跟住阿鍾國斌議員。
唔該，主席，有好幾個問題想澄清下。
Mr. Chung Kwok Pan, I have a number of questions. Well, Mr. Chung, the Deputy Secretary, said that now is one withdrawal. In future, that is to be changed to 12. I'd like to know whether you've talked to the Trustees Federation, the Insurance Federation, and the like. If you change 1 to 12, how much more manpower will they need? Because the enhanced manpower will lead us back to cost and fees, as mentioned by Mr. Darren Machine, because jumping from 1 to 12 may lead to cost rising 12-fold. All right, you'll try to make it free. But then that will lead us back to Mr. Lee Chia-Yan's remarks. Well, a 12-fold increase is huge. It will be absorbed into the big pool. So I wonder whether you've talked to the Insurance Federation, the HKIFA, and so forth. And if so, what's the result? And Mr. Eddie Chung, the Deputy Secretary, mentioned just now that he would not set a minimum amount of withdrawal because he would like to have the biggest flexibility. He would like the member to discuss with the trustee. Well, what if they want $1,000 per month and they say $1,000 per month is too high in cost? So if there's any dispute or controversy, will there be any middleman to mediate? Deputy Secretary. First of all, I have to say that in this amendment exercise, it will not be a rigid requirement for a member to make 12 withdrawals. As an option for him, he can still opt for 1 withdrawal, or if he's offered 12 free withdrawals, he can just take 4 withdrawals. He has a choice. We will require the trustee to, in handling members' withdrawals, there will be 12 free withdrawals, such that there will be different requests on the claims or withdrawals. So it may not be 12. For the accrued benefits accounts, well, if the balance is very small, the member may still choose to make 1 withdrawal only. Well, we've not yet really go down to manpower. We did discuss with the industry. The industry told us that they would want 4 free withdrawals only, and the minimum withdrawal amount is $5,000. That's what the industry told us. We understand that for the industry, they will incur cost on themselves for withdrawal of accrued benefits. So we would like to strike a balance. We would like to balance members' interests as well as industry costs. We would like to strike a balance. So for the moment, this is our suggestion. But of course, we keep an open mind. I have to repeat that we've actually consulted the FA panel before suggesting 4 to be increased to 12.
And concerning the minimum amount to be withdrawn, now let me suggest this compromise. Now, because if we set that minimum amount in the law, then if we are to change the amount, then we will have to amend the law, and that may be time-consuming. Mr. Chong, Mr. Zhang said that it could be 4 times, it could be 12 times, so in other words, it could be 3 times, 8 times, 6 times. And as a result, the costs would go up even more. So I think you should fix the number for everyone, 4 times or 12 times or 8 times, and that would help the industry plan the manpower requirement. Because if you allow people to have a free choice, some may choose 4 times, some 8 times, some 9 times, some 6 times, and that would be complicated, wouldn't it? Mr. Zhang, that may not necessarily be the case, Chairman, because the cost is calculated on a per transaction basis. If a scheme member chooses to withdraw the accrued benefits several times, now then there can be at least 12 times free of charge every year. Say if a scheme member chooses 2 times a year, then that would mean 2 transactions. And 2 transactions, of course, cost less than 12 transactions. And also, for phased withdrawal of accrued benefits, scheme members have to make claims with the trustee, and they have to fill in forms. And the trustee may discuss with the scheme member concerning auto payment through a standing instruction or arrangement. Thank you. I wish to supplement. I think Mr. Chong's concern is valid. Now, at the moment, it's one scheme member withdrawing once in a lifetime. But now it can be 40 times, for example, $200,000 and $5,000 each time. So the number of times may increase from 1 to 40. Yes, you are saying that it should be 12 times maximum a year, but I am worried that in fact the number of times may be 40 At the moment, it's only 1. So in order to reduce the administrative costs, either you have to set a minimum amount, or you have to limit the number of times. I think, Mr. Zhang, we need to discuss this matter further. According to your reply, the administration has no intention to specify in the law the minimum amount of withdrawal and account balance for each phase withdrawal of accrued benefits. Now, it is true that some members in the FA panel said that the number of times should be increased to 12, but then there were some members who said that the matter should be looked at again. So we hope that scheme members will understand that the 12-time arrangement is not an ATM arrangement. And you know, checks have to be issued, and then the scheme members will have to deposit the checks in their accounts. And in the future, we don't know, there may be auto payment arrangements, but we don't know when they can be put in place. Mr. Lee Chak-yan. No, the problem has not been resolved, Chairman. So now can it be like this? 12 times a year, then you specify an administrative cost, and then 4 times you specify administrative cost, 8 times an administrative cost. So you present a menu. In other words, if you choose 12 times, then the administrative cost will be higher. But then didn't you say that it should be free of charge? So what can be done? So finally, there is a cost, and it's not free of charge after all. So can you present a menu as such? Now allow me to say this. I think you are talking about the users pay principle. Now, say for example, some only withdraw once, other withdraw 12 times, and so you are suggesting that there should be a menu. But then we are saying that for 12 times it should be free of charge, and then of course if someone withdraws 15 times, that will not be free of charge. So I think. What if there is a menu? In other words, 12 times, then there is this fee, administrative fees. Perhaps the MPFA can address this point, whether you can present such a menu.
Very rough form, that is the current proposal, because the menu is your first 12 are free. Query whether there should be some limit either through our approval process or legislatively as the minimum amount on that. But the first 12 are free. Beyond that, it will be a matter of scheme rules. And as with withdrawals now, there could be a fee charged to a member for withdrawals beyond that. And so that menu will be set out. But it's a pretty basic menu at the moment. It's the first 12 free. Beyond that is subject to scheme rules.
No, what I'm asking, whether you will allow the menu to be presented to the MPF employee, saying that, okay, if you want one-time withdrawal, then the administrative fee, not the cost, will be like this, and then 12 times will be like this, 4 times will be like this. So it's on that part. But then, of course, you can say, they will say in a small typo saying that, oh, all these 12 times are free, but the administrative cost is higher if you want 12 times. Can they do that? And instead of 1 time, or if you say that, oh, they cannot do that, then it's another story, because then the administrative cost will be the same whether you want it 1 time, 4 times, 12 times. That's what I want to clarify.
This is an issue of language. The administrative costs, that is a cost that the trustee will incur, will happen for whether it's the first withdrawal, the second withdrawal, or the 100th withdrawal. How that is attributed within the trustee's accounts is one thing. For the member perspective, what we're talking about here is not allowing a fee that relates to that specific withdrawal. So there's no deduction from your money on your first 12. If you ask to withdraw $5,000, you'll get $5,000. subject to any spread, but there's no spreads in these as a general case. Beyond that, the scheme rules might say for your 11th, 12th to 20th withdrawals, there's a fee of $50. So instead of $4,000, you get $3,950. In that, they may then say for the withdrawals beyond the 20th, there'll be $500 fee as a discouragement. We would, of course, have a role in considering whether any of those are reasonable to the extent that they remove the actual rights people have, but it would be presented in that sort of menu. So I suspect that, because we do have some history here, this isn't without precedent. There are phased withdrawal arrangements at the moment under special voluntary contribution accounts, and this is where the 4 free ones come from. Generally, they only do 4, but to the extent they have more than that, they do have fees for those, and they will set that out in the fee table. So all of this will be totally transparent to the member, how much they will be charged on their withdrawal, and it'll be clear to them on the current basis that the first 12 will have no fee. Nothing will be deducted from the amount that they get.
好，咁我請啊。
All right, Mr. Tankapil, thank you. I understand that we need to strike a balance between cost on the one hand and convenience to the employees on the other. Now, the bill is proposing 12 times a year free of charge. I think in 5 to 10 years time, when employees retire, they may have about $200,000 of accrued benefits. And so will annuity schemes be provided? I think that's to the benefit of both parties. So maybe in future, MPF trustees may provide annuity plans. I think this amendment can pave the way for the annuity system in the future. But then concerning the withdrawal amounts, I don't think we should allow scheme members to withdraw only, say, $500 at a time. So, Chairman, can we deal with this as a separate issue? I mean, 12 times a year. Should we deal with this issue in the context of this bill or at a later stage? And then second, now can we offer some incentives to scheme members? In other words, if they agree that they will withdraw only once a year, for example, then they can be given incentives. Will that go contrary or will that go against the spirit of the bill? Let me try to give an answer. The insurance sector and the Association of Trustees are of the view that there should be a minimum amount. And the administration has said that it will look at this. So we will continue to explore this issue. But I want to follow up on Mr. Chong's point. Some suggest that we can discuss with the MPFA separately. But what if there can't be a consensus? And so I think it's better to have this written in the law, whether there should be a minimum amount of withdrawal, or whether there will need to be a discussion with the MPFA later, or whether we should also cap the number of times a year. So we will have to consider all these. And then, Mr. Zhang, I think you can answer the remaining point. Yes, Chairman. Concerning Mr. Tang's suggestion, now, if the trustee provides incentives to scheme members to try to reduce the number of withdrawals, the law doesn't prohibit that. The bill only says that there should be 12 times a year of withdrawal free of charge. And so if a scheme member wants to withdraw for the 13th time, for the 14th time a year, the trustee can choose not to charge him at all. But of course, we provide for 12 times a year in the bill free of charge. In fact, the administration and the industry and scheme members all agree that we should try to strike the right balance. We all know that the more times benefits are withdrawn, the higher the cost, and the cost will have to be shared among the scheme members. And then I want to reiterate one point. We've increased the number of times from 4 to 12, and that was in response to the suggestion of the FA panel. If members want us to reduce the number of times from 12 to 4 again, we are open-minded. We are willing to do so. But then, concerning specifying a minimum amount of withdrawal, the problem is that if we want to change that amount, then would involve an amendment to the law, and that can be rather complicated and cumbersome. And also, even if we state that it should be 4 times a year free of charge, it doesn't mean that the trustee must charge the scheme member making the withdrawal for the 5th time or for the 6th time. The trustee may decide to waive the fee for the 5th or 6th withdrawal in a year in order to remain competitive in the market. Mr. Chung Kwok Pan. Yes, Chairman, thank you. Mr. Zhang said that if a minimum amount was specified in the law, then the law would have to be amended if the minimum amount had to be raised. So can we make reference to the statutory minimum wage arrangement? Now, you know, there is this commission proposing an adjustment once every 2 years, and when the minimum wage is adjusted, there is no need to amend the principal legislation.
No response for the time being. All right, if there is no further question, we'll move on to the next item, costs or fees. Well, there's this piece of opinion that if the law specifies that when a claimant wants to withdraw accrued benefits, the trustee will have to, within 30 days, make the payment. Now, this viewpoint is that 30 days may be too long. Can it be shortened such that the claimant can receive the money as soon as possible? We have no intention to amend the duration. When the claimant lodges an application for withdrawing the accrued benefits, he has to allow time for the fund manager to effect transactions. We must, in actual fact, under reasonable circumstances, they don't need 30 days. 30 days is only the maximum in law. So there's no urgency for an amendment, and we have no intention to amend that. Sorry, Deputy Secretary, you have not mentioned costs or fees yet. We just mentioned withdrawal arrangements, for example, the $5,000. But of course, for costs or fees, you said that there shouldn't be other costs other than transaction costs. So what about the operational arrangements? Members, any more questions? If not, we can move on to the next item. Taxation, tax arrangements. Well, if the member has opted for tax-free, would that be tax-free? Yes, it's already stipulated in law that it should be tax-free. Well, the other items are not very controversial, but if members have any questions, they should feel free to ask questions or raise comments. As for Clause 23 of the bill, is actually a drafting-related issue. It's about the drafting method. We're inclined to adopt the Law Society's view. That is, in that paragraph, we'll add on a scheme member. Well, sorry, may I have a minute? Yes, we do not see any need for amendment. I wonder whether members have any questions, because this is only related to drafting language. Okay. Members, any comments? If not, we can move on to the next item. Next one, again, is a drafting-related viewpoint. The view is that generally in Section 35B2, the words "any written instructions" need to be further clarified. Well, we agree that we should make an amendment to further clarify the meaning of the expression. So we'll move a CSA to replace "any written instructions" to "written instructions as set out in a form specified or approved by the authority." To attain consistency in language, no policy matters are involved. Well, I think that's very clear. Can we move on to allowing early withdrawal of accrued benefits on terminal illness ground? Well, there's a new clause here that is on the basis of terminal illness ground, there can be an early withdrawal of accrued benefits. A Chinese medicine practitioner or Western medicine practitioner can sign to certify that the member has a shorter life expectancy, then the definition for terminal illness ground may be satisfied. And earlier, we're asked to refer to other definitions on this. Take, for example, whether or not that can be lengthened to 36 months. We discussed with other associations and organizations and maintained the view that 12 months is more appropriate. In Australia, they have relevant provisions which also use 12 months in the definition for terminal illness. So here we won't propose any amendment. Mr. Chung Kwok Pan? Mr. Chairman? It is very difficult to ask doctors to estimate terminal illness. In certain cases, I heard from doctors that very often they would not state the patient's life expectancy. Some doctors explained to me that, in particular for cancer patients, is a specialist who told me this. He experienced a number of cases that when he stated the life expectancy to 36 months or a year, he would upset the family members. He would also try his very best. Sometimes the patient's conditions may improve or deteriorate. So if you would like the doctor to specify that the patient might die in 12 months, I believe many doctors wouldn't want to do that. I did talk to many specialists, and that's what I was told. And some of the doctors were actually scolded by the family members because if he said 3 months, and in 3 months' time the patient did not die, the family members would scold him, and such estimation would cause uneasiness among family members. Well, Dr. Kwok is here. I think you should talk to the medical profession. Are doctors so willing to state that, say this patient will leave in 12 months' time? Deputy Secretary, perhaps I should first say this. When a scheme member needs to use the ground of terminal illness to withdraw accrued benefits, he will need this certification from medical professionals. It's for the doctor to say what the life expectancy of the patient would be. We actually consulted the FA panel, and then we also discussed with the representatives of the medical professional organizations, and they said that 12 months would be acceptable. The issue they raised was not that they wouldn't be able to do it. Well, if they are to say 3 months, it would be easier. The shorter, the easier. The longer, the more difficult. once they have made the certification, they have a responsibility to bear. Well, say if it is said that the patient is suffering from terminal illness and is only to live for another 12 months, if in future he lives for longer, the doctor won't be held liable in law. But of course, if the doctor is doing that in a dishonest manner, then that's another matter. That will be another form of legal liability. Mr. Chong Kok Pan, as I said, at the moment, many doctors wouldn't forecast the life expectancy of the patient. Can we say this? If a specialist is of the view that the patient is suffering from terminal illness, that will suffice. He does not have to speculate the life expectancy. Then the patient will still be allowed to withdraw the accrued benefits for medical expenses or other expenses. Deputy Secretary, Mr. Chairman, we repeatedly discussed this also. What's meant by terminal illness is very difficult to define, so it's difficult to enforce such a requirement. If the doctor is to make a forecast on the basis of 12 months, it's easier to handle. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, Mr. Chairman, I accept the 12 months proposed. But have you thought of the approach to be adopted? Now, I have this suggestion, and many colleagues also said this. All right, in law, we say it's 12 months, and the law is going to make certification. Can we add in and/or? Say if the doctor can explain that it is terminal cancer. Well, some illnesses are clearer. Other illnesses may not be so clear-cut. Doctors may find it difficult to specify the life expectancy. Chong Kok Pan didn't want to add psychological pressure to the patient or family members, but maybe terminal cancer has more medical support. So can we have more objective support, so to speak, say terminal cancer? Deputy Secretary, we also repeatedly discussed this before. Previously, the Consultative Committee of the NPFA also discussed this. Say, can we refer to certain precedents in the insurance industry in terms of illnesses? We discussed with the NPFA as well. It's very difficult to say, given the advancement in the medical sector, it's very difficult to specify what's terminal cancer because there's huge advancement in medicine. Say if a scheme member suffers from a serious illness, but he is not to pass away so soon, still he may have to arrange for his retirement life, so he may have some needs. So if he is to withdraw certain benefits, will he be losing certain protection for his retirement life in terms of income, for example? So eventually we still suggested 12 months. And we won't produce a checklist on terminal illness. Well, I mean, I can accept 12 months, but can you say 12 months or? You add in or. So you still find it unacceptable even with the word or? Well, you can have a discussion among yourselves. Who would like to answer this? Mr. Chairman, we started to discuss this in 2011, and that is continuously being discussed, and on every occasion the same issue was raised. If a patient is just suffering from a serious illness, say cancer, or blockage of blood vessels or cardiac problems, but it's not to pass away so soon, not in 12 months' time. Well, of course, some people would say that since he is so miserable, he's already suffering from terminal illness, why not allow him to make withdrawals? But then other people would say that, oh, that's not human. Contribution is 5% only, and dedicated contributions are for dedicated uses. We had a great deal of consultation and discussion before coming up with this suggestion. If the Bills Committee has strong views on this and would like to have further amendments, we'll have to go back and have further discussions. Mr. Sin Chung Kai? Well, I think mine should be considered a strong view. Retirement life is important, but to retain your life for retirement is even more important. Well, if it can be proved that the patient is suffering from a terminal illness, well, say, for cancer, as far as I understand, elderly cancer patients won't pass away so soon, but young cancer patients may pass away sooner. And cancer treatment may continue for more than a year. Family members would like to handle the issue first to save the patient's life first. If the life can be saved, then other things can be done. Well, if you spend all your money, it doesn't matter. Just rely on CSSA, for example.
Now, of course, I'm now talking about terminal illnesses, right? 12 months, certified by a professional. But then, can you list a list of diseases? You can consult the medical sector. As to what the definition of terminal illnesses are. You know, you have to take care of their livelihood during this period. Let's say if someone has a remaining life expectancy of 12 months or less, then of course, it may be rather meaningless to require him to plan for his retirement days. But then at the moment, I understand that loss of earning capacity because of very serious illnesses would allow the employee to withdraw his accrued benefits. So is there really a need to further expand this flexibility to cover a list of critical illnesses? Because I'm concerned that the MPF system may become a medical insurance system, right? 5 minutes for each member from now on, including replies. Mr. KK Kwok, I think the administration is being unsympathetic. Do you think people can really provide for their entire retirement life by relying on MPFA? In fact, at the hearing last week, some female cleaning workers started saving for the MPF over a decade ago, and they expect that by the time they retire, they will have about $60,000 in their accounts. I think universal retirement protection alone can help these people. Now, of course, the accrued benefits are the employees' hard-earned money, as well as the contributions from their employers. They are fully entitled to withdraw such benefits. Do you know that at the moment there are some cancer drugs, very effective but very expensive, and sometimes the cost of medication may span over a 2-year or a 3-year period. So what mentality or logic is it to deny people of the money to cure their diseases and tell them that they have to prepare or provide for their retirement life? Now, you know, sometimes it's difficult for medical practitioners to really accurately say that for a certain critical illness, the remaining life expectancy is 12 months or less. But then for some cancers, some types of cancers, the doctors know very well that the life expectancy or the remaining life expectancy is very short. Please understand that these are not welfare payments. The money is their money. The money is the employee's money. So if the administration is unwilling to move a CSA, I will do that. The money is that the scheme members' money, is the employees' money. In fact, I think universal retirement protection is the way to help employees provide for their retirement life. Professor Nelson Chow has published his report. The issue has been discussed for 2 decades. How come the administration still hasn't taken any action? And I want to say that, in fact, when scheme members want to withdraw their benefits because of critical illnesses, they really need the money. You know, and in our public healthcare system, some of the drugs are not provided free of charge to the patients. And so I really disagree that you should insist on this 12-month period for those in the terminal stage of organ failure, for example, kidney failure, liver failure, cancers. In fact, the medical sector has no difficulty at all defining such diseases. Doctors have no difficulty at all certifying that certain patients are terminally ill. So is it that you are unwilling to budge? Mr. Zhang, I want to say that the MPFS is not merely for retirement. And in fact, the MPF represents only one of the 3 pillars. Now, of course, emotionally, I cannot say that Mr. Kwok is not correct. But then I want to say that the MPF has its dedicated purpose, and that is for retirement purpose. I understand that for some accounts, in some places, the contribution rate is as high as 30-odd%, and some of the money can be used for the treatment of illnesses. But then here in Hong Kong, the contribution rate is 5%. We've discussed with the hospital authority. Now, Mr. Kwok is correct. There are some drugs not covered by the drug formulary of the hospital authority. But then I understand that there are certain assistance schemes to help those who have genuine difficulties or hardship. And also, I think we have to look at whether this money should be used for curing diseases, because the MPF is for one of the 3 pillars for in respect of retirement protection. Mr. Tan Ka-Piu, I want to ask how many people will be able to satisfy the definition of critical illnesses. I understand that I have come across a case. He is in his 50s, and he has a problem because he has to stand for long hours. And but anyway, concerning loss of earning capacity, in this case, he is able to satisfy this criterion. So perhaps we can make reference to the definition in the insurance sector on critical illnesses. And let's look at how many people will qualify. And then at the same time, we want to have figures concerning cases under total loss of earning capacity. I am open-minded. So we just hope that people, employees can, of course, as to whether the amount should be used for curing illnesses, that can be discussed further. But there are some who apply to the Samaritan Fund for subsidy concerning the use of certain expensive drugs. And if we have a list of critical illnesses under MPF, then will people be rejected when they apply to the Samaritan Funds Secretariat? Yes, yes, Chairman. We've heard members' views. We are willing to consider all these suggestions. I think it's a real concern. Now, if you withdraw the accrued benefits, then the benefits become the person's assets, and that may affect his or her application to certain funds for subsidy. Now, in fact, what I have said is the rational thinking for managing the MPF system. So please allow us some time to consider this matter further. Thank you. Mr. Tang. So is there a clear, commonly used list of critical illnesses, or is it that different insurance companies have different lists? I think different companies have different lists because the premium charged is different. In fact, Chairman, we've asked the insurance industry. For life insurance, there isn't a commonly used list of critical illnesses. Mr. Chong Kwok Pan. We are now discussing remaining life expectancy and terminal illnesses. Critical illnesses are a different concept. For example, a heart disease is a critical illness. So let's look at terminal cancer. I have come across a case in which the doctor has refused to say or to decide on the remaining life expectancy of the patient, and ultimately, in fact, the patient lived for 5 more years. But of course, I think Mr. Sin's point is a good one. Yes, 12 months is a consensus, but you should add or. Because for terminal illnesses, it's not a joke. I think we're talking about facts, not whether we are being rational or emotional. And Mr. Kwok has also made a valid point. After all, the money, the benefits belong to the scheme member or the employee. The employee doesn't know how much longer he can live. And so his retirement life is not his primary consideration. He needs to withdraw the money to buy the drugs to cure his or her, his disease or his illness. And after all, we are only talking about a minority of the employees. So how come you can't allow some flexibility for these people? Yes, I understand that MPF is for retirement purpose. But when we're talking about terminal illnesses, when we're talking about remaining life expectancy, then retirement life is no longer, this idea is no longer meaningful to the employee. And so I think apart from the 12 months, you should also add or as proposed by Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Thank you. All right, I believe the Deputy Secretary is willing to consider this point. Next, issuing medical certificate. Chairman, our suggestion is to have a registered medical practitioner or Chinese medicine practitioner certifying that a scheme member is terminally ill. And some have suggested that suggest that we should have two people or two professionals giving the certification, and some ask whether Chinese medicine practitioners should be allowed to issue the certificate. Now, on the first point, we think the certification by one professional will be enough. And concerning the second point, under the pneumoconiosis compensation ordinance, under the employees compensation ordinance, registered Chinese medicine practitioners can give treatment and issue certificates. And so we think that Chinese medicine practitioners should also be allowed to issue the medical certificates.
Next one, legal liability. As mentioned just now, when issuing a certification, a medical certification, does the doctor have to shoulder certain responsibilities? We would like to say that if the doctor signs a certification and the patient later lives longer, the doctor won't be held liable in law. Other withdrawal grounds, will we discuss this? In the course of discussion and during public consultation, many people raised this. Apart from terminal illness for early withdrawal, what about property purchase, disabilities, medical consultations, and so forth? Can accrued benefits be withdrawn? And what about the definition of ceasing employment or self-employment permanently? Well, we did receive views on these aspects. As we said, the contribution of 5% to the NPF is very low, and dedicated contributions are for dedicated users. In other jurisdictions, the contribution can be as high as 36%. And there are also dedicated accounts for saving up money for property procurement and medical treatment. So we're not talking about a saving scheme for multi-accounts for multi-users. This is actually a scheme for retirement. So we don't think it is appropriate to, because of the foregoing grounds, allow for other types of early withdrawal. The amendments that we are proposing this time in relation to ceasing employment or self-employment permanently, that is the definition, the amendments will make the definition clearer. For example, just now we mentioned drafting amendments to the definition. Next, approval of new constituent funds. Item 1, to add the new approval criterion of in-scheme members' interests. Well, new constituent funds can only be approved in scheme members' interests. And there is this suggestion that we need to define in scheme members' interests. In fact, in 2011, the NPFA already promulgated some guidelines on the approved criteria for in-scheme members' interest. And the amendment this time is to give the MPFA clear powers to the effect that if new constituent funds are rejected by the MPFA will have a very sound statutory basis for the decision. If there's no question, next item. Next item. At the moment, the MPFA and the Securities and Futures Commission's approval are required for new constituent funds. We received views to the effect that the process should be more expeditious and the fees should be reduced. As we're talking about investment products, unavoidably, the two regulatory authorities' approval will be required. I have to emphasize that for these two regulatory bodies, they have regular meetings to streamline procedures and reduce costs. If there are no further comments, well, Mr. Chung Kok Pan, just now the Deputy Secretary mentioned procedural streamlining and reduction of costs. Well, what will actually be done to reduce costs? Because there are complaints about these managers saying that the costs are too high, really too high. So what will you actually do to reduce the costs? Why I said that the fees are so high at the moment? Because some members have many accounts. If a member has many accounts, that will incur a great deal of cost. So scheme members have to collate their accounts. If there's enhanced communication between the two regulatory bodies for the new fund, if there are questions, the member needs to ask once only instead of twice. That will streamline procedures. I think the major problem is that a scheme member has too many accounts. Oh, too many accounts. Is it that the management companies are putting forth too many new products such that scheme members have opened more accounts? Well, when a scheme member transfers to another job, he may have a new account. You mean 400? You mean all the companies adding up together? Well, many people think that there are 400 odd products. In fact, that's not. If the employer chooses that company, then the employees will only have 8 to 10 products to choose from. But of course, if you're talking about the whole of Hong Kong, then you have a wider range of choice. But for a single company, the choices are limited. Well, the MPF has adopted the semi-portability approach. How can you encourage scheme members to reduce the number of accounts? Well, if a scheme member has many accounts, he may not have the time and energy to oversee all the accounts regularly. Well, we're talking about the approval process because new constituent funds need a long time for approval. So I understand what they're talking about. If overall speaking, all scheme members keep many accounts, how can you reduce administrative costs? Well, allow the MPFA to examine solutions. For the time being, we don't have any solution. Next one, again, a drafting related amendment. That is for the newly added section 22BB6. It suggested that we delete the word the. Well, we have no objection to that. Next one, again, a drafting related issue. Under Schedule 6, we have a new item 6AA. And there is this advice that we should add after item 6A. That is to add the new item 6AA under Schedule 6 after item 6A instead of after item 6. Well, any new item should be titled as item 6AA. In accordance with the existing drafting convention, we do not accept the suggestion. And a decision of the authority imposing conditions on an applicant for the registration of a Provident Fund scheme should be kept. Next, well, some funds may be too small or do not attain the objectives. Ever since 2003, 16 funds had been deleted and 100 constituent funds had been consolidated. We'll continue with that exercise. Electronic communications. Well, Mr. Chairman, can I speak on all the 3 items under this? Yes. If we can use my electronic communications, we can reduce manpower and the overall cost of the system can be reduced, and overall speaking, scheme members will benefit. We very much agree with this. In fact, we're continuously doing this. For the overall fees and charges, we did observe reduction on the whole. If an employer has not registered for an MPF within 6 months, the MPFA has to take out prosecution. We're of the view that if the MPFA has to take out prosecution in 6 months, that time frame is appropriate. So we don't think it is necessary to extend that period. As for fine, there is this comment that if an employer does not pay the contribution, the fine should be the same as that for arrears of wages. In fact, it's the same. It's $350,000 or imprisonment for 3 years. All right, if there's no further comment, we come to disclosure of information. Well, to put it in simple terms, our objective is twofold. First of all, for overseas taxation jurisdictions, we should be able to disclose certain information that can combat tax evasion. Hong Kong is a member of the international community. In the international community, 40-odd economic entities would very much like to exchange information as soon as possible so as to combat tax evasion more effectively. But this is not just for the sake of compliance. In fact, Hong Kong has been exempted from under the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. This has been discussed before. Do members have any questions? No. Please continue. Then we move on to the next page. That is on page 16. There is the suggestion that before seeking advice from, the purpose of be added in the new section 42(1) CAA of MPFSO. Having regard to drafting practices, we don't think that suggestion is necessary. We don't think the amendment is necessary. Please continue. Next page, another drafting related issue for the new section 42(1)A(C). It is suggested that the proposed change of wording, that is, the disclosure enables the exercise or performance of a function imposed or conferred by law, is in line with the legislative intent. We think the draft as it is, as it now stands, is very clear, so we don't see any need for further amendments. Next, Mr. Chairman, again, is drafting related. Can I ask members whether or not they have any comments, because there are no policy considerations? well, then we can immediately move on to, again, fees and charges and investment. That starts from page 18. There is the suggestion that the MPFA should monitor the range and charges of MPF products to ensure that the products are not too expensive. I have to say that we've adopted a multi-pronged approach to control fees and charges. For example, consolidation of accounts, use of electronic communications and so forth to reduce costs. And this has proved to be effective. Now it has dropped to 1.567%. And in future, we will have a core fund to control fees. After the launching of the core fund, the fees and charges under the MPF system will be further reduced. Mr. Chung Kok Pan, I'd like to ask something about the core fund mentioned by the Deputy Secretary. He would like to see costs and fees further reduced. By how much do you expect? Well, the more the better. We would like that to be 0.75% or below. As for the average expenditure ratio, it should be 1% or below. That is at the start. If the core fund is successful, we believe there's still room for further reduction. So around 0.75. Yes, the upper limit is 0.75 of the management fee. Well, would you please go on to the other items, which are rather direct and simple? On investment. We're asked whether or not we can allow scheme members to invest their MPF contributions and accrued benefits in the tracker fund. In fact, under the MPF scheme, the tracker fund can be chosen because some schemes do offer the tracker fund.
And some make the contributions, and then the contributions are directly used to purchase the tracker fund. That's the proposal. But if you do the purchase through banks, you have to pay a fee. So it doesn't mean that making the investment through the MPF system would be expensive. In fact, if you make purchases every month outside the MPF system, in fact, the cost may even be higher. Next, management. This is not really related to the amendments in the bill. Then it's about the administration setting up a fund. Now, the MPF system is in the form of private retirement protection schemes, and we have no intention to become a public trustee. And then offsetting severance pay and LSP, in fact, it's not really within the ambit of this Bills Committee. Progress can be achieved only with very detailed discussions between employers and employees. So I think I've already covered all the points in this paper. Mr. Chung Kwok Pan. Yes, Chairman. It is said that the administration or the HKMA have no intention to manage these funds. So what about the core fund? What about the core fund? Are you expecting private companies to be in charge of the core fund? Now, in fact, one of the options in the consultation document is this, and that is existing trustees can launch their core funds, but the MPFA will have to lay down the investment, or rather, MPFA will approve the investment strategies for these core funds. Now, in the consultation document, we have proposed a strategy whereby when employees grow older, then the risk level will be reduced. These are the so-called target date funds or lifestyle funds. In fact, there are such funds under certain schemes, and so a market-based approach, if adopted, would mean that these core funds can be launched as soon as possible. But then there is a cap on the administrative fee that is 0.75%. So existing trustees will be launching core funds for employees. Is that right? Now, in fact, this has been discussed in the consultation document, whether there will be one trustee providing the core fund or many trustees doing so. I understand that a decision will be made later. All right, so that's all concerning this paper. And let's now continue clause by clause scrutiny. And we will now start from clause 21. C3774 or page 35 of the marked up copy. So members, you can ask questions at any time. Sorry. The legal advisor would like to say a few words. Yes, Chairman. As members are aware, we've been given a paper entitled Clause by Clause Examination Draft CSAs. In fact, we received it last Friday afternoon, and this paper has been tabled. And I want to say that some of the CSAs involve transitional arrangements and also some specific amendments, not just technical amendments. And so we will have to deal with these as well. All right, so let's complete clause by clause scrutiny, and then we'll go back to the paper on clause by clause examination draft CSAs. Chairman. Yes, perhaps we can mention the CSAs in the paper where we come to that. Yes, meanwhile, I think we should allow the legal advisor more time to study these CSAs. Yes, Chairman, I think we can start from page 35. Amendments to the MPF schemes General Regulation Cap 485 Subsidiary Legislation A. So in fact, we've deleted the definition for constituent fund. That's because we want to put it back in the principal legislation. And then you see the triangle, and that's to clarify 7 and 7C concerning those who contribute and a notice, and also the notice of participation, and then 36 notice of participation, 37 I beg your pardon, 31(4). This is again a technical amendment, just to refine the wording. Also, page 37 in a Chinese version. See a triangle and a square. So in the future, we'll have a notice of participation, and there will not be a notice of acceptance. And then moving on, page 39. That's in relation to section 14. So, no fees or financial penalties may be charged to or imposed on a scheme member or deducted from the member's account. Page 40, and that's section 24, concerning the necessary transaction costs. Page 41 now. You see a triangle, section 20 or clause 25 rather. So apart from the necessary transaction costs, no fees for payment of accrued benefits and lump sum. And then 35B, a similar amendment on payment of accrued benefits by installments. I want to ask a question. 35B, 12 times or 12 installments, but it doesn't mention anything about a minimum withdrawal amount. No, if you prescribe such an amount, no problem. But then it seems that you're suggesting that the industry should have discussions with the MPFA. So at the moment, there is no minimum amount specified. Mr. Zhang, please. There is no minimum withdrawal amount mentioned here, but it doesn't say that there can be a minimum withdrawal amount. Some say that, in fact, as this is silent in the bill, so a minimum withdrawal amount cannot be prescribed. Chairman, 35B, there is also an amendment to refine the wording. And then page 42, and that's clause 26 of the bill. We have proposed to delete these provisions because they need to be transferred back to the principal legislation. So it's only a technical amendment. And then after clause 26, now we have 26A. And it's a transitional arrangement. MPFA can supplement here. Yes, perhaps I can ask the legal advisor this question first. Thank you. I want to clarify whether you are talking about the original CSAs or the newly proposed CSAs, the new ones. Perhaps we can deal with this one next time. All right, next time. So please deal with the other amendments first. Now we have clause 27 of the bill, and we propose to delete 55. And that's to streamline the administrative procedures. There is no need to issue membership certificates to the employees. After clause 27 of the bill, we have an amendment adding 27A, a transitional arrangement. Perhaps we can deal with that next time. Next. Page 44 to 52 of the Chinese version of the marked up copy. That's clause 26 of the bill concerning withdrawal of accrued benefits by installments. And again, the amendments are technical in nature. As so many pages are mentioned, perhaps we can look at them to see whether we have got any questions or comments. All right, please continue. Page 55, and that's clause 29 of the bill. And that is to amend section 1097B. And that is to provide the forms in the form and language prescribed by the MPFA. Right, I think we can continue. Page 56 to page 58. And that's clause 30 of the bill, Chairman. These are consequential amendments on how the permitted period is calculated. And then page 59, that's clause 31 in the bill. And that is to delete regulation 124 so that the authority doesn't need to give participation certificates to participating employers. Again, this is to streamline administrative procedures. Next, page 60 of the Chinese version, and that is concerning the permitted period. And now page 61 of the Chinese version of the markup copy, clause 33 of the bill. No longer is a consequential amendment because participation certificates are no longer required. Then page 62, and that's clause 34 of the bill. And there can be correspondence by electronic means. Next, clause 35 of the bill. This is only a technical amendment with regard to the wording. And then page 64 of the and 65 of the marked up copy of the Chinese version, and there's clause 36 of the bill. The MPFA can provide information concerning the accounts of the deceased, and this is again an administrative arrangement. Next, we have page 66, clause 37 of the bill. And we've included the definition of registered Chinese medicine practitioners. And this the square clarifies what is meant by permanently departing Hong Kong. Chairman, the speaker is not coming through. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. No, this is because we do allow registered Chinese medicine practitioners to issue the certificate. That's why we need to include this definition.
Now we turn to page 67 of the Chinese version of the marked up copy. That is amendment to clause 38 in relation to claims for paid accrued benefits as a result of terminal illness. Well, we had some arguments about this just now. Would you please go back to think about this? Because in future we may have to change this. So it's up to you to decide. And some members said that they would like to amend this provision as well. All right, 68. That is in relation to clause 39 of the Blue Bill. This is a technical amendment that is to repeal 醫生證明書 and substitute it with 醫學證明書. And then for section 1642C, we propose to repeal everything after the trustee with and substitute it by a declaration by the member in a form specified or approved by the authority stating that that contract of employment for that particular kind of work has been terminated. Mr. Tan Ka-Piu, I understand the difficulty in reality. Before legislative amendments, the person may have left the post for, say, 1 to 2 years before he used the total incapacity as a ground for withdrawal of accrued benefits. In reality, that may be difficult. So now you're saying that in the form he doesn't need any certification from the employer in relation to departure from the post. He only needs to put a tick against that box. Well, it's not just a tick, it's a declaration. It is legally binding. So he only needs to make a statement in the form. He does not need to attach the employer's certification. Yes, sometimes it's difficult for the employee to ask the employer for the certification. So this is to be dropped. Please continue. We move on to page 72 of the Chinese version of the marked up copy. Is clause 40 of the Blue Bill. We would like to propose a new 164A in relation to claim for payment on ground of terminal illness. Then, Clause 42 of the bill, we propose to add a new 165A for claim for payment by committee of the state appointed under the medical health ordinance. This arrangement is the same as the member for those schemes for the mentally incapacitated. And then in relation to Clause 43 of the bill, we propose to add the new subsections 1A and 1B. That is, within a certain time frame, there will be new stipulations for the payment of accrued benefits. And then Clause 44 of the bill, this is also a consequential amendment, such that accrued benefits can be withdrawn by installments. And then, for the triangle on page 75 of the Chinese marked up version, the authority can promulgate appropriate guidelines. And then in relation to Clause 45 of the Blue Bill, we have a consequential amendment. Members can withdraw accrued benefits by installments. Page 77 of the Chinese marked up version, at the bottom, it is related to Clause 46 of the Blue Bill. This is also a consequential amendment in relation to fixed fine. Yes, please continue. Then page 78 and 79 of the Chinese marked up version. On page 79 is to allow for electronic communications. But if electronic communications are used between the employer and the employee, the prior consent of the employer and the employee has to be obtained. Page 80 of the Chinese marked up version in relation to Clause 48 of the bill. Again, a consequential amendment in relation to electronic communications. Please continue. Page 82 of the Chinese marked up version. Fines are defined here as accrued benefits can be withdrawn by installments. This is a consequential amendment. Here in 11B, we'll propose an amendment. Again, drafting related. The original intent has not been changed. From page 82 to page 86 of the Chinese marked up version, again, similar amendments. And then page 87 of the Chinese marked up version, it's related to Clause 50 of the bill. We would like to add the new 47D to lengthen under the subsidiary legislation the period required for taking up prosecution. That is to be changed to 3 years afterwards. Pages 80 up to 90, up to 90, page 90 of the Chinese marked up version for terminal illness and property asset management can apply on behalf of scheme members for withdrawal of accrued benefits. This will also apply to also members. So we're proposing a consequential amendment. And then for Schedule 2, Item 2, before that we propose an amendment which can be explained at the next meeting. And then clauses 52 to 53 of the bill. This is to clarify employers and self-employed persons how to define the permitted periods. So again, this is to clarify the original content. Page 92 of the Chinese marked up version. This is related to clause 54 of the bill, and this is a technical amendment. And then clause 55 of the bill, page 93 of the Chinese marked up version, arrangement for information disclosure. Again, this is applicable to also. For 78A, we propose an amendment which can be discussed at the next meeting. We'll explain in more detail later. Next time, I mean. And then pages 94 to 107 of the Chinese marked up version. First of all, for page 95 of the Chinese marked up version, under Section 8 of the Inland Revenue Ordinance, if a member, by way of installments and use terminal illness as a ground for withdrawal of accrued benefits, sums of money will not be included, as stated here. So much for our amendments for subsidiary legislation. Legal advisor, in terms of drafting, I'd like to seek advice from the government for Inland Revenue Ordinance. As for the definition of mentally incapacity, in the Inland Revenue Ordinance is defined as the person is permanently not suitable for taking up the tasks just before he became mentally incapacitated. Well, under the MPF ordinance, there's this definition for total incapacity. Apparently, as it now stands, in Cap 485, there's a definition for total incapacity. And the definition, the content of that definition, when compared with the proposed new definition for mental incapacity in the Inland Revenue Ordinance, the content is similar, but the word total in the English version and yunqun in the Chinese version are not there. So would you like them to produce respective definitions under the two ordinances, or would you propose other solutions? Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. In the Inland Revenue Ordinance, the word incapacity is used. In the IRO, the word total is not there. Maybe I should go back and study this in detail, or I can discuss with you after this meeting. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. Well, the amendments proposed by the administration just now may affect our previous discussions on the Blue Bill. For example, in relation to the definition and calculation of the permitted period. So we have to clarify all these with the administration. Maybe you should clarify all these issues before our meeting. Then we don't need to argue here. Well, we're finished with the Chinese version of the marked up copy. I'd like to ask the legal advisor to check the English marked up version against the Chinese version, and also to check with the Blue Bill as well. If it is necessary, she should report to the Bills Committee. Deputy Secretary, well, Mr. Chairman, we have 5 more minutes. Do we have time to go to the transitional provisions as well? Well, I think both the Secretariat and our legal advisor would like to have more time to go through those. I think the paper came in too late. Well, there may be controversies, so unavoidably we'll have to leave those to the next meeting. Any more comments? No? Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.